Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to some more Warpforge. And today we've got a special Warpforge content update, which is the reinforcement reveals the Scions, the Tempestus Scions, coming in hot for the Astra Militarum, the Imperial Guard. We got so many names for these guys. And the Imperial Guard could use some help. If you didn't catch my video, I'll have it down in the description, but it's a great primer on the raid coming very soon for this faction. Where you can kind of get your sense of each warlord, what their strengths are currently, before we get into the new warlord today. Yeah, it was really fun to do that video and revisit, what are the strengths and the weaknesses of the Astra Militarum before the reinforcement. And now that they're here and we could start doing some theory crafting, I think it's a great video to catch if you have not. But we're here today to look at the reveals. I am excited to get into this with you all. And let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, thank you for your support. And if you like what you're seeing, feel free to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. So let's get into it. All right, we are starting out with an interesting one, the Aquilon Servo Sentry. 1 energy, 0/1 on the attack stats, and 3 health. With the text, at the end of each turn, deal 1 damage to a random enemy. So obviously very like a cheaper, smaller version of the Tau drones. Not going to have super high impact, either attacking or through its ability. I think in some sense, right, if you could park a couple of these behind some Vanguard units, that's something. But more than anything, I think this is just a very flavorful, cool card. Who doesn't want to strap a servo with a giant, I think, las cannon in this picture. So I think it looks cool. It feels flavorful. Probably not super competitive, but who knows? Maybe someone will, I don't know, find a way for this to be somewhat good on a wide board. But I think you'd rather just be playing stronger units. So Aquilon Servo Sentry gets an A+ in the flavor department. Probably pretty close to an F in the competitive card game department, but very cool nonetheless. All right, now we're getting into the juicy stuff. The Tempestor Sergeant, 3 energy for a 3/4 with 4 health. A lot of text. Regiment, right? So as long as another unit makes a ranged attack, the regiment hits. So give +1 range to a random friendly troop. And then duty, give +1 health to all friendly infantry. So with the regiment baseline, and I love thinking about kind of the floor of a card versus the ceiling of a card, this card really hits all the marks, right? Because on the floor of it, you play this, you attack with your Warlord. That's a regiment trigger. It's only troops, so it has to go on Tempestor Sergeant. And you've got a 3/5/4 for 3 energy baseline, right? And if this dies to a melee flanker, it dies to a melee flanker. But if they don't, the next turn you're punching for 5, or you set up maybe a Vanguard unit or a couple shock troopers in front of the Tempestor Sergeant, and then give everything health, right? And just keep accruing value, keep adding that +1 ranged attack to a bunch of different troops. I mean, I just expect to see this 3-drop as 2 copies in every Astra Militarum deck. I think even when you're doing tanks, you got to run infantry, you got to get to that late game. Tempestor Sergeant is just a really efficient unit. And this is kind of what I was looking for from the reinforcement, to see units that just could hold a little bit more of their own, but also had some synergy. And the fact that this has regiment and duty is packing quite the punch. So this is just going to be all over. I think it looks great. It's also going to play great. And I can't wait to get my hand on a pair of these guys as well. All right, last but certainly not least, we've got our legendary Warlord that will be added in the reinforcement, Hektor, Thenmann. Lots of N's in that last name, so I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. The duty is going to be deal 2 damage to an enemy and stun it. So a little bit of a different take on Lord Solar's duty, which is just deal 3 damage to an enemy. So yeah, you can hit their Warlord and stun their Warlord if they're, maybe it's like a Swarm Lord that's beating you down. Or just, CC a unit that you need to deal with. Definitely just a really nice ability to have as a failsafe, or to maybe close things out with. But the most important thing is, what does Hektor do? So Hektor's ability is going to be efficiency and excellence. It is ephemeral, of course. Deal 1 damage. If the target dies, draw a card. So I think about how the 1 energy, deal 1 damage, draw a card spell tends to land in quite a few Astra Militarum builds. I was never a huge fan of it, but this is essentially that, right? But tacked onto a Warlord, and it costs 1 more. I think if this did cost 1, it would probably be too powerful. But at 2, it's sort of like, okay, when you can get the value, great. Keep the engine going, right? Keep throwing more troops at your opponent. That is something I know the Imperial Guard are very good at doing. But otherwise, maybe you don't have to do that. Maybe it's better to use your duty ability that turn. This just seems like a Warlord that can support kind of an aggro mid-range strategy, right? Because you've got some ability to push damage and ability to get some card advantage, which is definitely something that the Astra Militarum need for their more aggressive plays. And to me, I think the biggest strength with Astra Militarum is their aggressive go wide strategies that would be supported by a Warlord ability like this. So is Hektor, going to be the one that everyone's playing with? I think probably we'll see more play over Lord Solar. Unless you're doing some sort of specific tank strategy. I think Ursula got a lot of really good stratagems, so I expect for her to be pretty solid. And then Dankler, I think, benefits obviously from anything with duty on it, anything that maybe allows him to get into the late game for, different, if you're doing siege warfare, stuff like that. So I think Hektor is just kind of like a nice choice. I don't think is going to be necessary for everyone to play with, but I do expect him to just be kind of inherently a little bit above Lord Solar. All right, folks, that is what I got for you today. Quick, not too much of me talking, but of course I'm always excited to talk about the new stuff and see how it's going to affect the meta, how it's really going to affect this faction. And I think to close things out, and thank you for sticking with me if you've been here for the whole video, appreciate all the support. I really do think that there is quite a lot of power packed into this reinforcement. This has sort of been the trend, right? They did get a bunch of buffs as well, but they didn't really put the faction back on the map. I expect for this reinforcement, somewhat similar to the Sacred Rose, to really put this faction back in action. Will it be tier 1? I don't think so. But I think they will be there will be competitive tier 2 decks. I would be really surprised because right now they're at like tier 3-ish. So either way, I think they're definitely going to benefit. So thanks for sticking with me. As always, I will catch you guys in the next one.